Hello and welcome to Camp Xbox. I always find the comparison between the 6th and 7th generations to be so interesting. Games that were released on both the Xbox and the 360. This is a topic we have explored before, and today we're going to look at a few more. Let's compare some games that came out in both generations and see how similar and different they are. As always, I might have missed plenty of differences here as I'm not an expert on any of these games, so please let me know in the comments what I didn't cover, and also maybe some more games for the third episode in this series. All footage was captured off of original hardware, and I'd like to thank my YouTube channel members for their support. But let's go ahead and hop into this one. First up is Peter Jackson's King Kong, the official game of the movie, one of the best game names ever. This is one many of you recommended that I look at in this next episode. This one was released by Ubisoft on November 22nd, 2005 for all 6th generation consoles as well as the 360. This game is based on the movie King Kong from that same year, which is an awesome movie, and this is a launch title for the Xbox 360. I had only played the 360 version, but recently on stream, I played the original Xbox version, and I think both versions are a lot of fun. The Xbox and 360 versions in terms of gameplay aim for the same thing and feel similar. One thing I loved about this game was that it wasn't afraid to try some innovative things, even though it was just a movie game. This is a game with a minimal HUD, meaning you don't know your ammo or health. All of these are told by clues from what your character says or how you look. It's a very freeing game in that regard. Not only that, but your gun isn't constantly waving in your face and must be pulled out every time you want to shoot something, and you only have one weapon. I love this part of the game, and part of me was expecting the OG version to be stripped down, but nope, we are playing the same game here, and it feels great both ways, and the same can be said for the actual Kong levels. So with the game playing similarly, the true determinant for differences is going to come down to looks. So you might think the 360 version will look better, but that's not necessarily true. Early 360 games like this had many issues that I believe were worked out over time, but the Xbox game feels like a top-of-the-line release for the 6th generation, pushing what consoles were capable of at that time. The 360 version has a much different lighting system and feels much more dynamic and atmospheric, but it's almost too dark at times. I actually had a commenter say in the last video that if you played this on a CRT back in the day, it was almost impossible to play, and I've seen that elsewhere online, which I can honestly see that being a thing. I also like the look of the character models better on the Xbox version, where they feel more blurred, but closer to the source material, as opposed to cleaner but further from the source material, especially because the cast returns to do the voices in the game. Kong does look amazing for the 360 though. The Xbox version is strong, but the face on the 360 version looks closer to what the movies had. So I think looks-wise, the original Xbox version is overall more consistent, but since I mostly played this game on the 360, I still have a soft spot for that version. Though if you've never played this one, you should check out the Xbox version just to see how great games were looking so late in the Xbox's lifespan. Next up is Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter. This one was developed by Ubisoft and came out on both the 360 and Xbox on March 7th, 2006. This is one of those times where both versions of the game feel like completely different experiences. I had played this one before, but only on the 360. On the 360, this is a third-person squad-based shooter game, but when you shoot, you have the ability to move into a first-person view. The dynamic design here is what made this game stand out back in the day. It felt so fluid, moving between the different viewpoints, and the way the third-person cover system worked with you pressing against a wall felt fresh in the mid-2000s. On the Xbox though, this game plays only in first person, so the dynamic feel isn't quite there. It also makes it feel more action-oriented. You can die fast in both, but the first-person play makes it feel like you're constantly in action, and it's less tactical. Though in the Xbox version, you do get one squad mate that you can order around to help you, but on the 360, this is amped up to 3 squad mates, adding more tactical depth. I believe this is one of those cases that just boiled down to the gameplay. The 360 is just better. The tactical controls, cover system, and third-person play are stronger, making for a much more entertaining game. Not only in gameplay, but also in level design. Both games feature the same story, but the level design and missions overall are vastly different. The Xbox levels are much shorter and feel more compact, where the 360 levels feel larger scale. I also feel like there are a lot more dead and empty areas in the 360 version, where the Xbox version is full of life sometimes. Graphically though, the original Xbox is a standout game for the console. Supporting 480p widescreen, the detail in levels is awesome, where streets are packed with little things to look at and are always dense, along with some awesome character designs. It's a strong looking game, yet it does try to replicate the real-time cameras of squad mates on the top of the screen, and it comes out horribly choppy and unstable, especially when compared to how well the 360 runs it. Honestly, I would have just taken this out of the Xbox version. Once again, the 360 version is a completely different game and looks good in its own right, with a larger, more open feeling world. It has strong draw distances and details. The lighting is really solid as well. It's interesting because the 360 Ghost Recon shows off a great look for early 360 games, whereas the Xbox version shows off a great look for a late Xbox game. Ubisoft once again makes two different versions of the same game, much like they did with Double Agent, and I think that's neat. I would say it makes it interesting enough to visit both and check both of them out, but if you're just gonna play one, I would recommend the 360 game. Next up is Tony Hawk's Project 8. This one came out on November 7th, 2006 for both consoles and is one of the last 20 games ever released for the Xbox. By late 2006 into 2007, I feel the Xbox was getting a lot of sports titles and watered down games, where even if 2006 was a great year for games on the console was starting to run dry by the end of that year. Project 8 is an interesting one because I'm a huge Tony Hawk fan, but I've always skipped over this game, and this video was my first time looking at any version of it, except for a few minutes of the PSP game. Project 8 is another one today where we are talking about two different ways to play one game. Both versions use completely different engines. Project 8 on the OG plays like the Neversoft skateboarding games that came before it, but actually wasn't made by Neversoft. So if you played American Wasteland, it feels very similar. Tricking is simple button presses. It's the same for manuals, grabs, flips, reverts, you name it. If you've played another Tony Hawk, you know what you're getting here. It's not to say the 360 version isn't completely different, but the new engine gives it a completely new feel. Though Skate hadn't come out yet, the camera feels more in tune with that, and the controls are similar to early Tony Hawk games, but I felt like they were a bit looser, though there is a nail the trick feature where time slows down, and you push your sticks in various ways to create your own trick, and this shows up in both versions. I don't think it feels bad at all in either case, and I don't mind the newer take, though in almost every other facet, Project 8 on the original Xbox felt like a downgrade. Project 8 is an open world game on the 360. You unlock section by section, but you can always move between each area, where Project 8 completely reverts to a level-based system. American Wasteland tries to create the illusion of an open world, but that is given up here. Project 8 also creates an open world with more open goals on the 360. You still talk to people to get your goals, but it's less rigid and allows openness. Also, many areas to skate in have goals just laid on the street for you to take on. On the OG, it feels like classic Tony Hawk with people you talk to and each level you transport to, rather than it all being connected. Though I will say this feels like the classic Tony Hawk formula, so it is comfortable. Most every goal has videos on the 360, and some of that comes into the Xbox, but not all of them. On top of that, they're very poor quality renders of the 360 video and look fairly awful on the Xbox. Not just by comparison, but in general. Graphically, it's down the taste since Project 8 on the Xbox has that familiar Hawk look, where Project 8 has a sleeker design and the cutscenes and characters feel perfectly in place. Though the frame rate is pretty awful at times on the 360, and the Xbox is very smooth in comparison. And Project 8 does support a widescreen aspect ratio on the original Xbox. Both are interesting as releases, and I think the original version is a bit watered down. It is still really fun as a classic Hawk, the frame rate is more consistent, and the game is familiar. The 360 version just feels like the real game that they were trying to achieve and is the actual version of Project 8 from Neversoft. Though, honestly, I'd recommend playing both, and I might have had more fun with the Xbox version. So definitely just check both of them out because they're really interesting releases. Next is Tomb Raider Legend, released by Eidos on April 11th, 2006 on both of today's consoles. This is another one today that I only ever played the 360 version. I did enjoy it when I last played it though. Legend was a fresher take on the Tomb Raider franchise, which had grown a bit stagnant at this point. It had a more modern third-person control scheme, but wasn't as focused on the action side, with strong puzzle design and a few modern touches along the way, as well as updating Lara. Gameplay-wise, both versions are extremely close to each other, having the same levels and puzzles and gameplay choices. It's going to only really matter what controller you're playing on, depending on how you feel about the controller, as well as the look of the game. Biggest difference is with lighting. On the 360, the bloom is much stronger, and it's a bright game, almost too bright, washing out some of the action set pieces in the game. Places like the mansion are where you really can see it, where strong shadows are created. In 2006, I felt this was seen as superior, taking After Effects and amping them up, but nowadays I don't see it as anything special. I prefer the original version's darker palette and color tone. Everything doesn't feel pulled down by post-processing filters, and it feels like everything comes together better. There's more focus on pushing the console to the highest ability possible, and it's impressive for an original Xbox game. On top of all this, the frame rate is much lower on the 360, and it shows. The cutscenes on the 360 do get an upgrade, but once again, I feel the original Xbox version is better put together, making for a much more consistent looking game. I don't think either version is bad, and the 360 version is backwards compatible, but overall, I'm going to give the point to the OG Xbox version here, just because it looks like a more consistent game. Next up, we have Marvel Ultimate Alliance. This game was released on October 24th, 2006, and was available on many consoles, with the Xbox and 360 versions released on the same day. I've swapped between both versions of this game over the years. I've just played it with so many friends and on my own, and this is one of those games I've slowly realized is a favorite of mine. In this game, you get to pick from a roster of Marvel heroes, and you take on Dr. Doom's Masters of Evil. Once again, the gameplay here is pretty much unchanged between versions. You play from a top-down angle, and you can play alone or with friends as any heroes and fight bad guys. Each hero has their own powers, but it's still a button-mashing type game, and there's something fun and relaxing about it. The biggest difference is in characters. The 360 version gets two new characters not seen on the Xbox, Colossus and Moon Knight. Neither, in my opinion, are major contenders to be my favorite. They play fine, but I don't find their powers as interesting as some others, though I think it's just cool that in 2006, Moon Knight got an addition here where he was even more of an underdog character. Colossus is cool too, as an X-Men fan. That's not it though, as the 360 version has DLC through the store, or if you own the Gold Edition, which adds in 8 new characters. You get 4 heroes, with Cyclops, Hawkeye, Hulk, and Nightcrawler. All awesome inclusions. Nightcrawler is one of my favorites, and Cyclops is a must-have in a Marvel game. Hulk especially is a must-have, and I'm surprised he wasn't in the original game, but my guess would be rights issues. The other 4 are all villains, which adds a fun bit of spice to the game. You have Dr. Doom, Magneto, Sabretooth, and Venom. Now, all of these guys are strong, important characters to include in a game like this. From one of my all-time favorites, Magneto, to Venom, and a great pick with Sabretooth, it's most of all funny to have Dr. Doom included here. He's the main villain in this game, and it's funny to have him walking around defeating Doombots and saving the day. Looks-wise, I think the 360 version gets the upper hand. This game isn't going for realism, and it's more stylized, so I think the stronger HD look stands out more on the 360, but don't take the OG Xbox version out of the running. This one runs at 720p widescreen, and it looks awesome. It really pops on the console. So I think looks-wise and gameplay-wise, you're getting the same deal, yet the best way to play this game nowadays is the Gold Edition, so you can play with all the extra characters, but just a warning on that one, the prices of that one is really high. So at the end of the day, just play this however you can, because you'll have a good time. But that wraps it up for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. I really enjoyed making it. Leave a like, it really helps me out in the algorithm. Subscribe to keep up with more videos like this, and be sure to comment below with things I might have missed or what games I should cover next. I would really love to hear from you. And I want to give a huge shout out to my YouTube channel members. Thank you so much for your support. You really help out the channel, and I'll see you here next time at Camp Xbox.